Hey guys, Victor here, coming at you again with another update to my Tearlament deck. This one's going to be a little bit different because it's going to be the final version of Tearlaments before the new set of Duelist Nexus releases, which is going to give us access to cards like Revolution Synchron. But until then, this is what we're going to be playing for now. And if I was able to go to Nats, this is more than likely what I would have played. So with that out of the way, let's just jump straight into the deck profile. Now for the main monster lineup, we are of course going to be still playing 3 Tearlaments Reinoheart. You have to play 3, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then you also have to play the 1-ofs that you're allowed to play. So the 1 Scheiren, the 1 Merrli, and the 1 Havnis. If we could play more, we would, but unfortunately we're limited to only playing 1 of each. Then after that, with this specific version, I wanted to lean heavily into like the Reinoheart. So for that reason, I decided to play 3 Tearlaments Reinoheart. You pretty much always want to be able to normal summon this every turn if you can, because it's going to be like your main method and of actually like milling cards, right? Because even if you don't have like a Scheiren or something with like a King of the Swamp to combo with it, you still can send your Tearlaments Kashtira, and then that will in turn mill 2. And then you also combine this card typically with your Tearlaments Scream to mill 3 more in addition to that. And yeah, things just get really out of hand really fast for your opponent when you open this with the Scream. So I really wanted to put like a heavy emphasis on 3 Tearlaments Reinoheart for this specific version. And because of that, I decided to just not play Diviner of the Herald. But if you want, you could still play Diviner of the Herald because it's one heck of a bomb card type of card. As you know, once Diviner gets dropped, if they don't stop that, that means you're going to be milling 5 because you're going to hit like an Agido monster. But for this specific version, I just decided not to do that. I wanted to make it a lot more streamlined, if that makes sense. And then speaking of the Agido monsters, you have to play the 1 Agido, the 1 Kelbek, the 1 Keldo, and the 1 Mudora. Not much to say, they're just good cards. Mudora is obviously the most cuttable one, but with Runic being as popular as it is, it's definitely warranted playing at least one. And not even just Runic, right? There's a lot of graveyard decks, and even like pseudo graveyard decks like Labyrinth that revolve around resetting their trap cards from the grave, or if you play against like Dragon Link, right, with their Bestials constantly trying to hit like key cards, or just it's you definitely just need the 3 or the 2, sorry about that, in order to actually be able to play against those decks. Then we're also going to be playing 3 King of the Swamp. It's King of the Swamp, you know, since we don't have Kit-Kaloss, this is going to be our main method to actually get into the other cards in the extra deck, such as like rulkaloss, kaleido-heart, even things like Grapha. So yeah, you have to play 3. You know, there can be an argument for playing 2, but you definitely just want to see this card as often as possible because it is one of like the main combo pieces that gets you into like your powerful extra deck monsters. And then we're still playing the Destiny Hero engine, so we're playing the 2 Destiny Hero Malicious because it's a level 6, it's a free body, not much to say, just really good. And then I'm still playing also the 1 Destiny Hero Denier, just mainly because like the flexibility that it offers you and being able to recycle cards like Malicious and just the different types of monsters that you do play, so it becomes like great link fodder, you know, just things of that nature. It's still like really worth playing. I don't know if it's going to be worth playing once Duelist Nexus comes out because Revolution Synchron is just, it's an incredible card, but we'll see, honestly. There needs to be a lot of testing done with those cards. Then we're still playing the 1 Destrudo. Much like Denier, I really like the flexibility that the Destrudo offers you because you can copy so many different levels to match whatever the situation calls for. So that means you can synchro with it for really high levels, you can exes with it, you can even just use it for like link fodder or whatever, honestly. But yeah, I really like this card still. And then for the final monster, I decided to play 1 Helshaddoll Hollow. I just really wanted something that would help me mill more cards, and this pretty much just fit the bill, right? Because typically you have like 2 monsters with different attributes when you mill this card, so you're going to be milling 2 more cards because it's like the main focus of this deck, right? You want to mill. And the reason why I don't play like Shaddoll Beast or Shaddoll Squamata is because like I said, you want to mill. Drawing is cool, but it doesn't really matter. Milling is the important aspect that you want to be able to nail pretty much every single time. So yeah, just this one. And plus, like, they're all pretty much bricks, if I'm being honest. Beast, Squamata, Helshaddoll, all bricks. So I'd rather just limit it to just 1 giant brick instead of 3, you know? And with that, that's the monster lineup. And now we can move on to the spell and trap portion of the deck. Now for spells, we are of course still going to be playing 3 of our Primeval planet Perlereino. The card's fantastic. It searches any tier monster, it pops cards, it boosts your fusions and your tier monsters by 500 attack. It literally does everything for the deck. You pretty much always want to open it if you can, in addition to like the Reinoheart, right? Because it just gets your engine going pretty much every time. Then, as I mentioned earlier, This deck revolves around Tearlaments Reinoheart and Tearlaments Scream, so that's why I'm playing 3 Tearlaments Scream in this specific version, just because you always want to open it as, even if you don't get access to the Reinoheart, right? If you have any Tearlament monster, whether it's Tearlaments Kashtira, or even like Scheiren, Merrli, Havnis, whatever, yeah, just being able to combine those cards with Tearlaments Scream to mill an additional 3 more, can just sometimes just straight up win the game right then and there. And then, you know, the 500 attack loss for your opponent's monsters until the end of the turn isn't pretty, like, it's not too shabby either. It does come up a lot where, like, the monsters aren't strong enough to get over your guys. So, yeah, I really, really do enjoy 3 Scream. And then for the next 3 of, this is always, like, the flex spot. I used to play Super Poly, but for now, I decided to actually play Dark Ruler No More. I really like how Dark Ruler No More, you know, in addition to, like, not needing to discard, because sometimes you don't want to discard with cards like Super Poly, it's able to answer so many different decks, because let's face it, this is a very varied format, so you never really know what you're going to be able to play or what you're going to be playing against. Like, you could be playing against Kashtira one round, then you could be playing against like Sword Soul the next, or then you could play Despia, Branded, whatever. It's just a mess. And Dark Ruler No More pretty much gives you the best chance of beating as many decks as possible. And then obviously once you get into games 2 and 3, if it's not that great of a card, you can side it out and put something that's a lot more appropriate for the matchup. But yeah, I just opted for 3 Dark Ruler No More. And then we have like a bunch of 1-0 spells. So we have the Poly, the Foolish Burial Goods, the Foolish Burial, the Call by the Grave, Terraforming, and Tearlaments Grief. I still like Tearlaments Grief because it's, like I said, it's basically a pseudo emergency teleport, but you can get like a little bit creative with it, right? If you open up like Tearlaments Reinoheart plus Tearlaments Grief, you normal the Reinoheart, you send whatever you need to send, and then you can activate Tearlaments Grief, and then you can special summon out your Tearlaments Kashtira, send your Reinoheart, Tearlaments Kashtira will mill 3 more, and if you have like any cards that you want to discard off of your Reinoheart, you can activate your Reinoheart's effect too. So there's just like a lot of really cool utility that you can use with this card. And even if you don't like get the summon effect, right, if you mill this, you can add back one of your banished traps, which does happen very often thanks to Tearlaments Kashtira, typically banishing like your sullieks and your Metanoises or whatever traps you may happen to play. But I don't think you need more than one. One is, yeah, pretty much like perfect. Then after that, we have our traps. So we have the 2 Tearlaments sulliek, the 1 Tearlaments Metanoise, and the 1 Trivikarma. Pretty standard for the most part. You know, nothing too crazy, because let's face it, you don't really want to play too many traps. You pretty much just want to focus on these ones that actually float and get you cards. You can make an excuse for playing cards like Tearlaments Crime, I guess, but I'm not good at winning the die roll, so I don't really have that luxury to be able to main deck something like Tearlaments Crime. And with that, that's the main deck. It's 40 cards like always, and now we can finally move on to the extra deck. Now for the extra deck, we're just going to be playing 1 synchro monster this time, being Burying the Floor. You don't need more than this. It's literally that it does everything. It destroys, it negates, it brings back monsters from the graveyard during the standby phase. And that's really useful because like if your hand's pretty weak, you can bring back, and this is able to like survive, for example. You can bring back like a Tearlaments Kashtira or a Tearlaments Reinoheart, get their effects, mill 3, mill a specific card, and then just go to town. So yeah, like this card just does so much for the deck. And then for the Xyz monsters, we have the Time Thief Redoer and the Beatrice. Since we play the Malicious, Beatrice is a no-brainer too. Literally, it gives you access to quite literally any card that you want from your deck. And then we play 1 more Xyz. This is just like a little funny card that I wanted to try out. I ended up cutting Underworld Goddess because I figured this is basically able to do the same thing. And it's Willow, founder of the Dredge Dragons. So for every card in both graveyards, monsters you control gain 100 attack and defense, or not both graveyards, but just your opponent's graveyard. And because we play, you know, like Agido and Kelbek, they're typically gonna have like 10 cards, so that means all your monsters gain 1,000 attack. And there's just like tons of other ways to get their cards in there too. So this card becomes very threatening very fast. And then in addition to that, it's also it's like a mini shuffler too, because you can detach one card from this. One material from this card to shuffle a card from your opponent's graveyard back into their deck, or if your opponent has like hand trapped you, right, you can detach 2 materials instead, and then you can take 1 card that's in your opponent's graveyard. If it's a monster, you special summon it. But if it's like a spell or trap, you can take like a Triple Tactics Talent, for example, and then since they hand trapped you, you can talents them and then rip their hands apart, or, you know, draw two, whatever the situation calls for. So I really like this card. It's a really cool tech, but I'm going to be honest, it's 100% cuttable. I'd probably rather play like a Zeus or the Underworld Goddess still, just because, you know, those cards are insane. But if you want to be like a little cute with what you can do, this is definitely the card for you. And that's it for the Xyz monsters. For links, just barricade board blocker to get rid of bricks in your hand and unclog your hand. So, you know, your Trivikarmas, your Maliciouses, your Shizu cards. And then one Sprite's Friend. It doesn't really come up all that often, I'm being honest. It's mainly for when you play like the Diviner of the Heralds and like they get negated. But since we don't play Diviner, this card very rarely gets summoned. But the situations do come up, like, you know, sometimes. So it's nice to have just in case. And yeah, it's not much to say. It's just a good card when the situation arises. And then that's it for those. And now we just have a bunch of fusion monsters. So of course you have to play Tearlaments rulkaloss, and you have to play Tearlaments kaleido-heart. They're still very easy to summon thanks to the fact that we play King of the Swamp. But you know, sometimes you just don't have access to them. But if you do, chances of you winning the game are very, very high. And then we have the one Grapha to go along with them, because, you know, a lot of the times you're going to be using King of the Swamp to summon those other, like, rulkaloss and kaleido-heart, and you're definitely going to be using King of the Swamp to summon Grapha. So yeah. And then we have I guess traditionally super poly targets, but because we don't main deck super poly targets, you can't really call them that, I guess. But you play the one Mudragon of the Swamp, the one Garura, Wings of Resonant Life, and the one Predaplant Dragostapelia. You know, literally staple extra deck fusion monsters, because even though we don't main deck super poly, these are still very easy to make and very powerful in their own rights, especially Dragostapelia, where it can straight up just win you the game against like very brutal matchups, such as Kashtira, for example, right? They summon a Kashtira Unicorn or a Fenrir, you can just Dragostapelia them, and then in addition to their effects being negated, they become level 1, so they can't even Xyz summon with them, and yeah, it's just a fantastic card. Then we also played the one Destiny Hero Dangerous. Because we played Destiny Hero Malicious and Denier, playing Destiny Hero Dangerous is fantastic because it's a very easy fusion summon to make with your Tearlaments and your Destiny Hero monsters. And then this pretty much guarantees that you can also make Beatrice whenever you want, just because you discard a card, and then you Foolish or Malicious, right? And then Malicious is a 6, this is a 6, you make Beatrice there. And then thanks to Beatrice, you have access to whatever you want to. And then I really like how it unclogs your hand as well, like in addition to something like Barricade Board Blocker, right? Just because there are times where like you have the Shizu cards or things like that in your hand and you just want to get rid of them, and if you can't make Barricade Board Blocker, but you can make this, a lot of the times this is a lot better than Barricade, just because, you know, you get the Malicious on top of that. But yeah, I love this little engine. And then you have the Guardian Chimera, mainly for trap decks, but yeah, you know, it's just nice to have. And then finally, we have Helshaddoll Winda. I'm pretty sure you can use Helshaddoll plus any dark or plus your Tearlaments monster to make this, but don't quote me on that. But I'm like 99% sure you can, and you know, this is a very, very powerful ignorant card, and a lot of the times when it comes down, you just straight up win the game because it prevents your opponent from summoning, and then if they can't summon, they can't crack your board, and you know, yada yada yada. You guys know the spiel by now. But yeah, with that, that's the Tearlament deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!